You're a parasite who's bled us dry for 4 years, my father's voice boomed across the country club terrace, ensuring all 60 guests at my graduation party heard his proclamation. Mom stood beside him, nodding with theatrical sadness while my younger sister Vanessa smirked behind her champagne flute, the same champagne they ordered with my college fund money. The question burning in my mind as I reached into my blazer pocket was and whether they'd apologize when they learned the truth, but whether they'd even have the grace to look ashamed. This family is done supporting your delusions, Mom added, her voice carrying that perfect blend of disappointment and martyrdom she'd perfected over the years. 4 years of aerospace engineering, and what do you have to show for it? No job offers. No internships. Just more excuses about classified projects. I smiled and pulled out the official letter, the one with the Department of Defense header that had arrived by courier that morning. You're absolutely right. I should have been more transparent about my work. Work? Vanessa laughed, stepping forward in her designer dress, bought, like everything else she owned, with money my parents claimed they didn't have for my textbooks. Sitting in a lab playing with toy rockets isn't work, Jasmine. It's an expensive hobby that Mom and Dad have been funding. Actually, the Department of Defense has been funding it for the past 2 years, I said calmly, unfolding the letter. But please, continue. Dad snatched the paper from my hands before I could read it aloud. His face went from smugness to confusion to something that looked like fear as his eyes scanned the official letterhead, the classification stamps, the signature at the bottom. This is? His voice cracked. This is from the president. The terrace fell silent. Even the string quartet seemed to pause between notes. What? Mom grabbed the letter, her face paling as she read. Congratulations on your contributions to Project Artemis, instrumental in developing, awarded the National Security Medal. The Artemis project was classified, I explained to the stunned audience. I couldn't discuss the details. Still can't, actually. But yes, I've been working with NASA and the DoD on next-generation propulsion systems since sophomore year. That's impossible, Vanessa protested, but her voice had lost its edge. You never said. I was legally prohibited from saying anything. NDAs are serious business when you're working on technology that could revolutionize space travel. I took the letter back from Mom's trembling hands. Which brings me to the job offer section. Dad's champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the imported marble. Golden liquid splashed across his Italian leather shoes he bought the same week he told me to take out loans for my senior year because money was tight. Job offer, he whispered. SpaceX. NASA. Boeing. Lockheed Martin. I smiled. They're all bidding. The starting offers are substantial. But I'm leaning toward the new Space Force position. Better benefits, and they're offering to pay for my PhD at MIT. How much? Mom's voice was barely audible. The offers, how much? The lowest is $275,000. SpaceX is offering $350,000 plus equity. The Space Force position is classified, but let's just say it's competitive. Uncle Harrison, who'd spent the entire party lecturing me about realistic career expectations, choked on his scotch. $350,000? To start? Turns out rocket science actually is rocket science, I said. Who knew? But you never told us, Dad said accusingly, as if my silence was the real betrayal here. We thought you were wasting time, because you never asked what I was actually doing. You just assumed. Every family dinner, every holiday, you'd complain about supporting a professional student, while Vanessa showed off her sorority Instagram posts. Vanessa is studying business. Mom protested. She has connections. Vanessa is on academic probation, I interrupted. I know because the university sent the notice to my campus mailbox by mistake. She's failing 3 classes and spent her spring break in Cabo on your credit card. That's a lie. Vanessa shrieked, but her face had gone red. Check your email, I suggested. The dean sent another warning yesterday. While my parents fumbled with their phones, I addressed the rest of the guests, aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends who'd all heard various versions of what a disappointment I was. For 4 years, you've listened to my parents paint me as a failure. A leech. A dreamer wasting their money on an impractical degree. I pulled out a second envelope. What they didn't mention was that I've been on full scholarship since sophomore year. Every penny they claimed to spend on my education actually went to Vanessa's shopping sprees and their own lifestyle, Jasmine. Mom gasped. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? I opened the envelope, revealing bank statements. I've been financially independent for 3 years. Work study, research grants, and yes, classified government projects. Not only did I not cost you money, I actually sent you cash when you claimed Dad's business was struggling. That was private. Dad roared. So were my accomplishments, apparently. But you made my failures very public, so let's balance the scales. Aunt Patricia, Mom's sister, stepped forward. Linda, is this true? You told me Jasmine was bleeding you dry. I didn't invite her to Thanksgiving because you said she was ungrateful. We were protecting her, Mom said weakly. From expectations? From success? I laughed bitterly. From achievement? Or from outshining Vanessa? The truth hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa had always been the golden child, pretty, popular, everything they'd wanted in a daughter. When I'd chosen engineering over liberal arts, when I'd spent Friday nights in the lab instead of at parties, when I'd published research papers instead of posting selfies, I'd become the disappointment by default. The president, someone whispered. She has a letter from the actual president. I pulled out my phone, showing them the photo I'd taken at the White House during the secret medal ceremony. Youngest recipient in the program's history. But sure, I'm a parasite with delusions. We didn't know, Dad said, but it sounded hollow. Because you didn't want to know. Every time I tried to share my excitement about a breakthrough, you'd change the subject to Vanessa's social life. Every award I won, you'd dismiss as participation trophy culture. Every professor who praised my work, you'd claim was just being nice. You could have told us about the classified work. I literally couldn't. That's what classified means. I turned to the party planner. Could you please bring out the real champagne? Not the cheap stuff my parents ordered, but the bottles I paid for. You didn't. I did. Along with the entire party, actually. Consider it my graduation gift to myself, and my goodbye gift to all of you. Goodbye? Mom's voice cracked. Jasmine, you're being dramatic. I'm being honest. I start at Johnson Space Center in 2 weeks. I've already signed a lease in Houston. This is the last time you'll see me at a family function. You can't just cut us off. Vanessa finally found her voice. We're family. Family doesn't publicly humiliate each other. Family doesn't treat success as betrayal. Family doesn't financially gaslight their children while funding the other's failures. The party planner returned with the Dom Perignon I'd ordered. I took a glass, raising it to the stunned crowd. A toast, I said. To the end of delusions. Mine about having a supportive family, and yours about having a failure for a daughter. Jasmine, please, Mom begged. We can work this out. Can we? Tell me, what's my favorite project? What was my thesis about? Name one professor I worked with. Just one. Silence. That's what I thought. I set down my glass. You know what the ironic part is? If you'd shown even the slightest interest, I could have gotten Vanessa internships at NASA. Could have introduced Dad's struggling business to defense contractors. Could have been the daughter you actually wanted, successful and grateful to share it. We made mistakes, Dad admitted quietly. But cutting us off? I'm not cutting you off. I'm matching your energy. You publicly declared I was a parasite bleeding you dry. I'm simply agreeing. Parasites should be removed, shouldn't they? I walked toward the exit, then paused. Oh, one more thing. That classified project you mocked? It's being declassified next month. You'll be able to read about it in Time magazine. They're doing a cover story on the team that solved reusable rocket propulsion. Guess whose name is listed as lead engineer? Jasmine, several voices called out. Dr. Winters, I corrected. I defended my PhD thesis last month. Graduated summa cum laude. But you all were too busy planning this intervention to attend. The last thing I saw before leaving was my parents' faces, not ashamed, as I'd wondered, but something worse. They looked like strangers who'd just realized they'd been living with someone they never knew. Outside, my actual friends were waiting, lab partners, professors, colleagues from the space program. People who'd celebrated my successes instead of resenting them. How'd it go? Dr. Martinez asked. She'd been my mentor, the one who'd recommended me for the classified program. About as expected. They didn't believe me until they saw the presidential letter. And then? Then they believed me. But it doesn't matter anymore. Family's complicated, she said gently. No, I corrected. Family's simple. You either support each other or you don't. They chose not to. For 4 years, they chose Vanessa's mediocrity over my excellence. That's their right. Walking away is mine. We drove to the real celebration, the one IED planned with people who actually knew what IED achieved. No country club, no string quartet, no champagne flutes. Just pizza, beer, and people who understood what it meant to put a new propulsion system into orbit. My phone buzzed all night. Texts from relatives who'd suddenly remembered how they'd always believed in me. Calls from my parents, oscillating between apologies and accusations. Vanessa, demanding to know why I'd sabotaged her at the party. I turned it off. 3 months later, I was in Houston, working on engines that would take humans to Mars. The Time article had come out, making me something of a celebrity in aerospace circles. My parents had apparently framed the cover, telling everyone about their genius daughter. The same daughter they'd called a parasite. The same daughter they'd tried to shame for dreaming too big. The same daughter who'd learned that sometimes the best response to being called a failure is to succeed so spectacularly that your success needs security clearance. They send Christmas cards now. Birthday texts. Invitations to family gatherings where they can show me off like a trophy. I send back form letters. Dr. Winters appreciates your correspondence but is currently focused on projects of national importance. Because that's what you do when people only value your success, you remind them that they had the chance to value you, and they chose otherwise. And then you get back to work, building rockets that will touch the stars they never believed you could reach.